Hey, Phoenix REIA. We are here on Thursday, 12:30 Lunch and Learn series with Rich Wonders. Also, the Novation King. You can see that right there in his. So you can also follow him on Instagram at the Novation King. So, obviously there's lots of investment strategies. I'm just been a wholesaler for years. Obviously there's the creative finance route and then a Novation route as some other options to just if it just doesn't fit through the wholesale pipeline. Our team just did a Novation for like 135,000. So converting that on like a wholesale deal, I mean, obviously it is still done well, or taking a listing, it obviously wouldn't have done that well. But converting those deals is obviously awesome. So Rich is I obviously know enough to be dangerous with Novations, but Rich is specialized in like really getting these deals across the finish line. So Rich, I'll let you take it. I'm going to ask my first question now. Are you out? So I know you started with Sean, right?
Yep. Yeah. Sean Terry. I started January 28th, 2019 and worked with him for like 2 years.
Now, I know a lot of people with Novations and creative finance, some don't even do their own marketing. Their marketing is really to other wholesalers. Hey, let me convert your dead leads that you can't convert because I have a way to convert them. Or do you actually do your own marketing too?
No, that's me. I'm 100% JV now. And I'll be honest, I've got 4 guys working for me as closers, 2 lead managers, and I just brought on 3 more closers that I'm training. Okay. So JV can definitely be extremely lucrative. It's the hottest of the hot, especially if you know basically how to train your partners on what it is you're looking for. So yeah, it's been a huge blessing. Like JV deals have completely changed my whole business and allowed me to share the opportunity with not only my partners, but other people now that are closing deals with me. So huge advocate for JV.
And I'm sure you know this, and everybody that's been down the route, we all know that ad spend, whether we're paying virtual assistants a cold call or text or doing some PPC or whatever we're doing to generate our leads is generally our biggest cost, and especially if you're doing any PPC or social media ads or anything like that. So obviously getting the free leads and then converting them out the back door, is awesome. That's an awesome strategy. Zero cost, make money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've ran my own PPC before, and I mean, I don't know. I'm a wimp, man. I don't like, Google will ding you every time you spend $500, and like, you know what I mean? It's like ding, ding, ding throughout the day. And I'm looking at the leads. I'm like, yeah, where the leads at? It's pay per click, not pay per deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so exactly. So let's start today with just the 30,000 foot view. We just found out where your leads actually come from, their JV, but give us like the 30,000 foot view of Novations.
Yeah. So there's many ways to do Novations, just like there's many ways to wholesale, right? I've coined the phrase Rainmaker Novation for our strategy. And the reason why is what a rainmaker does, like in business, is they bring in all the key players on a project to basically all collaborate together and make the deal happen. So I'm a huge advocate of using local agents and excellent elite local agents rather than flat fee brokers, which a lot of people preach the gospel for. I started out doing it that way because that's how I was taught. But, once you do enough deals like that, you realize, one, it's extremely hard to scale. It's hard to get multiple deals going without having a big staff handling it. And 2, it's not the best use of your time, right? If you are really good at finding sellers and negotiating with them, that's one of the highest ROI activities you can do is negotiating with the motivated sellers, right?
Right.
So, yeah, basically we lock up, deals, and we have a whole method to that. And we disclose everything to the seller that, we're going to be selling to a third party. We're going to earn a fee from the buyer. We may use the MLS. If our third party buyer is using a loan, they're going to be signing the third party buyer's offer, but we're still going to be obligated to the terms of both that new offer and what we promised them already. So we pay closing costs, realtor fees if there are any. We handle any repairs or concessions, and they basically just get a hands-off white glove experience where we deliver the result on a silver platter.
So I use a line, and I don't know, maybe he uses a line. I kind of, maybe I'm like, hey, I'm a professional. I do this every day. I know how to negotiate with the buyers. I'm going to make sure you're going to maximize your dollars. You may get emotional with this conversation. I'm not going to get emotional with this conversation. Like so that's kind of one of my pitches.
Oh, for sure. And they buy into you. That's the whole thing, is them buying into you and the company. The people that say yes to this, where it is a win-win, generally speaking, they have some sort of personal situation going on where it's causing them not to go the normal path that 99% of people are going to do, which is, interview agents, fix up the house, get it presentable, have open houses, have a bunch of showings, and, a couple months later, hopefully everything goes well and they can get top dollar for the property. So these people, they're looking for three things. Okay. They're looking for certainty, peace of mind, and a hands-off experience. So if you can deliver that value proposition, because they're not going to articulate that to you directly, right? But that's the core thing that they're looking for. And that's why they're searching for a cash offer, is for those three things. But if the property's not a beater, right, it's not going to be a fit for 50 cents on the dollar. So normally what happens to these people is they bounce around from wholesalers. Maybe there's an inexperienced wholesaler that gives them an offer that's too high and then they can't perform. And a lot of times these people end up getting harmed because, they're looking for this solution that normally doesn't exist in the off-market world. So it opens up this huge spectrum for people where they have a personal motivating factor, but maybe the property itself isn't distressed. It could be anywhere from fully remodeled luxury property in a high-end neighborhood to something that's maybe dated but completely livable and would pass inspection. And also, your off-market properties, especially in smaller markets, it's awesome because it opens it up to every single cash buyer, including, people that are going to put sweat equity into it. Handy Andy, who's looking on the MLS. He doesn't understand wholesale. He hasn't bought any other properties recently. Doctors, lawyers that are looking for rental properties where, they're not in the mix with the wholesale world, but they maybe have an agent that's out there searching the MLS for opportunities. And we, get these at a discount. And we also sell them at a discount because we want them to move fast. Like, this is not something where you're trying to squeeze every penny out of the deal. You want this thing on clearance so it moves quick, because that's what's going to deliver on your certainty, peace of mind, and hands-off experience.
Yeah, that's what I tell my acquisition managers. He's like, man, let's just use 200 grand. And we, I tell my acquisition, this is your system for the tweener deal, right? We just got a PPC lead today. It's a 650 house. He wants 570. I'm like, we can't give him 570, but it's super clean. Like, I'm like, pitch the Novation. It's just for that tweener deal, but just anyway, let's just say it's 200 and they lock it up at 150. I'm going out on the MLS sometimes at like 184, 179. He's like, Chris, we could probably get more. I'm like, no, I think that's where you're missing the point. We're trying to get this across the door for the seller, make some money for us too, but get this across the door for the seller so we can get a raving review and we can just, do the next one and the next one. I go, if we cancel a bunch of these or get a bunch of pissed off sellers, it's not going to do us any good. Yeah.
It is much more painful for these to fall through than it is for a vacant house that's not livable. The sellers actually get harmed in a lot of cases. So you do have a moral obligation, an ethical obligation to only take on deals that you're certain you can get done. Like, you don't want to throw spaghetti at the wall with these, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So what else you got for us? What else? Give us more of the high level.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of covered flat fee versus.
Yeah. So your agents, I mean, you probably have how many agents do you have on your team? And obviously do you just use agents in the certain areas? You're like, hey, this is a Scottsdale one. I'm going to go to the Scottsdale agent. Hey, this is East Mesa. I'm going to go to the East Mesa agent.
So you know what? We have a process that we go through that's part of our due diligence for the property itself and for selecting the best agent to sell that particular house.
Okay.
Now, my model's a little different because I'm completely nationwide. Everyone's sending me deals off of Instagram at novationjv.com, right? So I've got deals right now in Maryland, Texas, Florida, all over the place, right? So here's our strategy. So when we get the property under contract, we'll do a search of all the houses that have sold, normally within like a half-mile radius. Sometimes it'll be a mile radius if it's a more rural area. But we call all those agents and we interview them. Now,
Okay.
this is something a lot of people struggle with, because normally what they'll do is they'll try to justify themselves to the agent and see if the agent wants to play ball with them. And then they're kind of stuck working with the agent that agrees to them, because they're not communicating in the most effective way. The way that I do it is I'll call them and I'll be very vague and very non-emotional and very kind of matter of fact. And I'm interviewing the agents to figure out who's the best person to sell my house. So the conversation will go something like this, like, hey, Sally, hey, my name's Rich. I have a property that we're looking to sell pretty quickly. And it's actually right in the same neighborhood as the one you sold on 123 Main Street. What can you tell me about yourself to give me kind of an idea what it would be like working with you? And if you can kind of give me a rundown on how things went with that last property, I'd love to hear what you have to say. So immediately I'm putting the focus on them, because this is what most people do. They'll call the agents. Hey, Sally. Hey, it's Rich. How you doing today? Who's this? Rich. Who are you? Oh, well, so I've got this property, and do you work with investors and wholesalers? No, I hate wholesalers, right? Or whatever, right? They're like, wholesalers waste my time, right? And I don't blame the agents. Like, I get it, right? There's a lot of wholesalers I don't care for either, right? Because they'll pull your leg, they'll waste your time. A lot of times they're not ethical, they're not honest, right? So you have to understand, like, this is a war, and you're the general, and you have different departments. The agent's mission is to sell your house as quickly as possible, and we're looking for the most competent agent possible. And the most logical place to look is someone that sold a similar property in the immediate area recently, right?
Right.
So we interview them and gather all that information. And also psychologically, right? When someone's selling themselves to someone, they're somewhat emotionally invested now in getting the listing, right? Because if we think logically, right, we're an ideal client, right? You're an agent. You spend money and time every day prospecting. You get a call out of the blue of someone that has a house in the area where you just sold a house, and they're looking to move quickly, and they're realistic on price. What more could you ask for, right? So we interview them, and we also gain valuable information about the property itself and the area. And, we do that with as many agents as we possibly can. And sometimes we'll talk to 5-10 different agents. One question we always ask them too is, a little bit further in the conversation when they've been selling themselves, we say, hey, we are looking to move fairly quick on this. If you could help us out, I'm going to send you all the pictures I have and everything like that and all the details. But we're looking to see where you think we would need to price the property, where you'd be confident we could get an offer in 3 weeks or less. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other, and normally I ask that question after the question comes up of, are you how long have you owned the house for? Like, you need to address that. You can't dance around that, but you don't want to start the conversation with that, but it will naturally come up. And the way that we disclose it is to say, hey, there's a bit of a unique situation. Okay. The seller is going through a bit of a personal situation right now. Can't really get into the nitty-gritty details out of respect for them. I've signed an attorney in fact paperwork that's an authorization to sign listing docs. So the seller, they're going to sign the buyer's offer, and they're also going to be signing the final closing docs and collecting the proceeds. But with what's going on in their situation, they don't have the bandwidth to interview the agents, handle the day-to-day process, and they've entrusted me with that. So if we work together, I'm going to be a very easy person to work with. I'm the one that I'm interviewing quite a few agents, but I have a good first impression of you. One thing you can do to help me out is I'm going to send you all the information I have about the property. I haven't been there personally myself, but I'm going to give you the pictures, just description of the condition. If you can get back to me as soon as possible and let me know, in your professional opinion, where you think we need to price this, where you'd be confident we could get an offer in less than 3 weeks, because we're looking to close in 60 days or less, and we're looking to move as quickly as possible. And this does a few things. One, we get all these different opinions where if we find out there's something that's a dud on the house or the area that we weren't aware of and we made some sort of error in judgment, we can find that out early and then either renegotiate or, let the deal go if the seller's not able to renegotiate. And then two, it lets me know, is this agent a good talker or a good worker, right? Because you'll have some people, they sound great on the phone, but then you give them a task and it's like 3 days later and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to that pretty soon. It's like, I want to find that out early. And the really good agents, they'll be like, hey, can I get access? Let me walk the property. I want to, you know what I mean? And if they sound good and everything, I'm like, okay, cool. Because normally you get this. You get a bunch of agents that don't pick up their phone. You'll get some that don't pick up their phone, but will get back to you right away. Some will actually pick up their phone. And then you'll have some good ones, some decent ones, some really good ones. And then there'll be one or two where you're like, this is the one right here, and they'll be kind of the clear standout. And you always want to go for that elite A player, because if you get good at the process of finding the A players are going to make your life super easy. They take the late calls, the weekend calls. They got the vendors if there needs to be repairs. You can ask their advice for stuff and actually listen to what they say because they know better than you, especially if you're in different markets where you're not familiar with the laws, the paperwork, all that. They can navigate through all that, and it gives you more time to get more deals. And then on the weekends, when they're taking all those calls that you would normally have to take or someone on your team, you can be chilling and it like frees up your time. It's much better, like lifestyle wise, way, way better. Like running with a flat fee is a freaking nightmare because a lot of your actions on the weekends and you're like a slave to your business at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the flat fee, you're taking all the calls. And so, it's not a...
Or you're delegating to someone that's likely not as good as you. You know what I mean? If you're the boss, the person you hire is probably not going to be as good as you. And what if they want to go out and party that weekend? This is what happened when I worked for someone else and there was one guy handling all that. I'd be looking at his Instagram story and he's like out at the pool at the Biltmore. I'm like, oh crap, dude. Like, who's answering my calls? You know what I mean? For my deals. Like, I need these sold, bro. What the hell? Or he'd go on vacation and I'd like be, losing my mind. Like, oh man, these deals aren't going to go through. I know he's not answering his phone. He's drunk at the casino.
Yeah. So on your 3 steps, you mentioned certainty. So what kind of time frame do you give the seller? You mentioned 60 days on like, hey, trying to get this closed in 60 days. Do you give the seller kind of like a ballpark time frame or?
Yeah, the contract is a 60-day close of escrow.
Okay.
So, and I hear some people do 90 days and all that. I disagree with that because if it's a deal, it should sell in 60 days. And if it's not a deal, extra time's not going to help you anyways.
Right.
The people get pissed off when it takes too long. You know what I mean? Because it's not adding to peace of mind. It's not adding to certainty. And I guess they're getting the hands-off experience, but it's not a good experience. You know what I mean? So yeah, I try to move them quick. And then I cut, if I find out that my price is off or it's not a deal, I negotiate right away, even though if I were to just be a sociopath and not take the seller into consideration, I probably would be better off listing it anyways and waiting to get an offer and then putting my foot on their neck, once I have the offer and really squeezing them. You can't do that. Like, God will punish people that act like that. You know what I mean? It's not a sustainable model, and people that act that way normally, they're not successful long-term. So since our sales tactics are so powerful, like we have an extremely compelling pitch, we have that responsibility to do right by these people. We can't be predatory. We can't, we got to act like there's news cameras on us at all times. You know what I mean? You can't, even if nobody's looking, you still have to do the right thing, because if we all act that way, we can keep this thing going for a long time to come. But if we're all just apex predators, this thing's going to go away very quickly, especially people that publicly promote that crap. I call it out all the time, and I put them on blast because it's like, look, you can do that in secret and there's nothing I can do about it. But you start promoting this and teaching new people this is the way, then I'm coming for you. You know what I mean? And luckily I have a bit of a platform and I've done so many JV deals and helped so many people that my name's good in the streets. Like there's no one walking around saying that I ever screwed them out of money. I ever did them dirty. You know what I mean? And I'm going to keep it that way. Cause like you're that guy, man. If you don't know Chris Eymann, that means you haven't done any deals in Arizona. You know what I mean? Your name's always been good. And that's something I really respect because in this world, yeah, like Tony Montana said, all you got is your word and your cojones. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I mean, obviously the whole real estate deal has changed. I mean, 20 years ago, if you didn't follow through with a deal or say what you were going to do, it was such a small industry, it got around quick. I mean, now it's just, I mean, with social media and all the stuff, it's, but I don't know. For me, it's just always been able to, if I can sleep at night, hey, I put my head on the pillow and I'm not worried about a transaction, then, I'm happy about it. So
for sure. For sure. You got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and, you teach your kids to do right. You can't be a scumbag. You know what I mean? So for sure.
Cool. So, yeah, so that was great. The agent. So what else can you tell us about the seller? You got your 3 points. You're doing it nationwide. And then, if you're doing any PPC or anything like that, if you try to just buy good old Phoenix, Arizona, it's going to cost you a fortune, right? But if you learn to, get out there and get into smaller markets, PPC actually isn't terrible as far as spending goes, because there's not everybody, when Open Door and OfferPad and Zillow, then everybody was trying to buy PPC in Phoenix. It was nutty. It was 600, 700. You couldn't even, I mean, for a guy like me, you couldn't even enter the game, because then they're also paying 90 cents on the dollar, and your conversation isn't near as good as their conversation. Here's 90 cents on the dollar. So
it's tough. You're competing with corporate money. You know what I mean? Yeah. They got millions and millions of dollars, and they may even be overspending just to get market share and lead everybody else out. You know what I mean? Yeah. You pay $700 for a listed property that an agent submitted. You're like, oh, gee, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, we got the seller. Now we got our dispo process. We're out there searching for agents that are kind of really working that neighborhood. What else you got? Anything else you got that that's just kind of, we got the acquisition of the dispo. Anything like, I mean, obviously when you're doing nationwide, you probably you can't like choose the title company, or do you out there reaching out to title companies like, hey, who knows how to help me do a novation? Or
Sure. Yeah. Title company is a major player in the transaction. So there's a few things. One, inside my group, we have a spreadsheet that has several nationwide title companies, several companies that are close to nationwide, and then local title companies for all the states that the different members have submitted. Like we got 380 members in the Rainmaker group now. So we're building that up.
Nice.
Now, me personally, I use a novation-friendly transaction coordinator. I use Easy REI Closings. Their links in my bio. They're super cheap. It's only a couple $100 a deal it comes out to. And especially if you get in the weeds on something and there's some sort of probate title issue, they pick the title company. They send all those annoying emails that people like you and me hate doing, like to check up on everything. That's their thing. You know what I mean? Like the people that work there, they're very organized. All the things that I suck at, they're really good at, and they actually enjoy. So I use the transaction coordinators to automate that, so I can spend more time talking to sellers. But the title company will blow up your deal. If you just try to use any title company, you don't have a conversation with them first, or have a transaction coordinator that's doing that for you. You're going to find out in the final hour that they don't want to play with you, and you're going to have to take your ball and go home, and you're going to lose the deal. So that is another crucial thing. Having the seller sign the buyer's offer is another massive hack, because a lot of people will try to sign the offer on behalf of the seller with either a power of attorney that's notarized or an attorney in fact that's just DocuSign. And you can get away with it a fair amount of time and not have your deal blow up. But there'll be certain lenders that will see that and they'll say, well, by the way, who the hell are you? Are you the grandson or anything? Oh, no, you're a company that's making money and you're a power of attorney. You're supposed to be a disinterested party. Nope, we're not going to fund this unless you, Mr. Seller, sign this paper that says these guys aren't getting paid inside of escrow or outside of escrow. Otherwise, we're dropping the deal. And I had that happen. It happened a bunch of times all at once. Actually, when I was on vacation, we were able to save most of them. I think we saved, it was like 3 of them, and we saved them. But one of them, we had to get the buyer to pick a new lender. The other one, they didn't go overboard. We just had the seller sign the offer, and then they were cool with it. But there are some landmines like that where the only way to learn it is either to go through a program where they teach you the blueprint, or to learn the hard way by having your deals blow up. And then you say, oh man, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. So tip number 3 is have the seller sign the buyer's offer. Now they're clearly going to know how much you're making at that point, or at least get an idea. It's going to look like a gross number. You might have to. Have you ever had to scale that number down? You got to remember, like, well, I'm paying for the repairs and I'm paying for the commissions, and so it's not as big a number as you think it is.
Correct. And it's really important. You set the expectations from the very beginning. So you kind of train the seller early to be looking for certainty, convenience, and peace of mind, and not to be involved. You don't want them involved in the play-by-play of the process too. Because that's the whole reason they have you in there, is they don't want to be bothered by that. You know what I mean? So there is, of course, in sales, there's always a most effective way to communicate something. And it normally ends up being a narrative and a story, right? So we call them back. Once we have the offer, it's like, hey, Mr. Seller, I have great news. Everything's going exactly as planned. Our marketing has been working fantastic. We're moving this right along. Now, we did get several offers that were way too low for us to be able to accept, but we have this buyer we've been going back and forth and negotiating with. We have several partners that we're working with this on as well, that we're going to be splitting our fee with. However, the good news is that's not going to affect you one little bit.
Right.
We have a conventional offer. They're going to be closing on February 22nd. I have all the paperwork here. Just as I explained to you earlier, since they are using a loan, we're going to need you to sign the offer. But we are taking on all the obligations of that offer, meaning there's probably going to be some concessions. We're going to have to pay the realtors. We're going to have to pay the closing costs, and we're going to have to divvy this up with our partners. None of that's going to affect you. You're getting every penny of the $320,000 that we originally promised you. I'm going to shoot this over right now, and I'll walk you through the offer. And then I just point out the closing date, the loan type, the thing that's relevant to them, I point out, and then I direct them to sign. I don't cover that whole thing like I do with them, because normally too, it's not, it's a regular state contract of whatever state it is. And it could be 5-10 pages long. You know what I mean? I don't cover all that because it's not relevant to them. And then I just reassure them at the end, pace them for the next steps. Hey, they're going to come in and do an inspection. Don't worry if there's any repairs that they require. We're going to coordinate all that. We're going to pay for that. You won't have to do anything. We're going to work that around your schedule and times that work for you. And we just reassure them and let them know, hey, everything's going exactly as planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What makes people mad is when they expect one thing and something else happens.
Right.
That's when people feel scammed, right? But when you tell the truth the whole time and you do exactly what you said we're going to do, there's no room for them to be upset, because they did it with open eyes and you delivered on the promise. Like they're going to get pissed is when you can't sell it. You know what I mean? So yeah, walking them through that. And basically like any type of sales, right? You want to have a method this is the way that we do it, because we found over time and at scale, this is the most effective way for the highest spectrum of people. So if you can dial that in, that's the difference between getting consistent, great results and having ups and downs all the time, because your process is constantly changing. And one day you may be on and one day you may be off. But if you have a way that you always do it, then you can get really good at that way. And when you deliver it, they hear that confidence in your voice and they're like, dude, this guy knows what's up. Like, he doesn't seem like he's trying to fly by the seat of his pants. This is something he's done 100 times. You know what I mean? And it adds to the reassurance and the certainty. But most problems with the seller can be solved with reassurance. Yeah. That's the big thing, is like, we're like counselors, constantly reassuring them, giving them that peace of mind that they're looking for.
Yeah. And I don't know if you, let me just straighten that out for some of you guys. He has a system and he follows the system, right?
Yeah.
So And he's developed that system because he's stumbled, he's fell, he had those 3 deals almost fall out. But now as you continue to get better, your system gets better, and you have, a process to follow. So
exactly. And for training and scaling, right? It's super important for people to know what's expected of them and to have a blueprint that they can copy paste. Because if you're trying to train people just to be like Jedi salespeople, it's going to be very difficult. You know what I mean? That's like taking a baby and training them to be a man. But if you have the process in place that they can blindly follow, then it's like raising a teenager to a man is a lot easier because the base is already there and they know what to do. Because there's so many variables in all this, just like with wholesaling. You know what I mean? There's so many different things. And then you try to sit down and work with someone for a month or two to find out, oh man, this guy don't got it the way that I thought he did. And if you don't have a process and you're just looking for people that are just exceptional communicators naturally, it's a much smaller pool of people. And I learned this when I sold Kirby vacuum store to door, right? We sold a $2,500 product to people that didn't want to look at them and definitely didn't want to buy them. And our talent pool was not a bunch of Harvard graduates with MBAs or successful salespeople. It was like people that were like at a low point in life. So we had to have a process that was like completely laid out for them that they can copy paste and that we could, correct them very easily when they colored outside the lines. It's like, no, this is the way that we do it because of X, Y, and Z. And they had to buy into the system. And then we would take people that could barely tie their shoes and make them successful at this because the blueprint had stood the test of time and the scalability of it, where we weren't relying on an individual. We were relying on a system that we knew worked. And if the person was naturally good, then they just added their own little extra seasoning on it and made it that much better, and they'd be a top performer. But even someone that didn't have any natural abilities, if they could blindly follow the system, they would get good, consistent results. So,
yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for jumping on today. We're reached our 30 minutes. Hey guys, we're going to be here for, we're going to talk this through. It might be 4 modules, 5 modules. But we're going to jump on here for a few more weeks with Rich and just talk about Novations. And he's going to dive a little deeper. This was just kind of we started with, sellers, JV and deals, all the way to, the right agent, the right title company, his transaction desk, getting deals done. I mean, if they know Novations, they're going to know it. I mean, if you're learning, you probably want to use a transaction coordinator to get all the, at least have them do your first couple deals, because you're going to be like, what paperwork? These are different.
Yeah. You're going to be stressing out if it gets down to the nitty gritty and you're afraid you're going to lose your deal. Like, it's worth it. Pay someone to do it. And then you can be out there hunting for more deals. Cause that's
exactly,
what most people like to do anyway.
That's where you make all the money.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you next week, Rich. Thanks for jumping on, guys. And if you're watching this later, we'll be back here next Wednesday Wednesday at 12:30.
Awesome, brother. Thank you, man.
Yep. See it.
All right.